What's up, guys? Just want to make a little video real quick. I'll try to sum this up fast. So, the other day, scrolling Facebook, see a car. This guy says, spot the problem. Car's 302. It's got a Holley, vacuum secondary. Can't really see the intake, probably stock one, 4-barrel, with a fuel injected style TFI distributor in it and factory headers. So he says, spot the problem. So me trying to be funny, I said, that carburetor's got to go. Put a 650 double pumper on it. Get rid of those ugly stock headers and put a nice header on it. Put a 5-speed in it. Probably be a 12-second ride. So I know what he was talking about, the distributor, but I also know that you can use the distributor and it works great. But some other guys already commented that, so I wasn't going to be a broken record. So I was like just messing around. I was bored at work. But somebody responded to me, not the guy that posted it, but somebody else. And this person said there's no way that an E6 engine with that carburetor on it, the vacuum secondary 600 on it, they tried to rattle off a bunch of crap and specs about the vehicle. And I'm like, okay, I already know what the specs are on the vehicle. But there's no way it'll go 12s with the stuff I said and that carburetor that's already on it. So they misunderstood my comment because I said if you would change the carburetor, it would do it. So that leads me to this next combination. In 2014 or 15, I had a Fairmont that I bought. It had a 302 in it that was rebuilt, and it had 30 over pistons, factory replacement pistons, just 30 over. It was the factory engine to the car, so 7980 engine. The big chamber 70cc heads, but they were decked 10,000ths. Just to get the surface trued up, because it was, taken to a machine shop and they did all the stuff to it. They put a small cam in it, 488 lift, flat tap Edelbrock cam, and a Torker intake with an Edelbrock carburetor, hooker headers with an H-pipe, Flowmaster mufflers, 2.25-inch exhaust. Had a C4 with a shift kit and a 20-something hundred stall converter. So I get the car. I put a Holley 650 double pumper on it. It's what I like. It's what I know. Edelbrocks to me they're great for a cruiser, but they're not my style. I don't like them. So I took that off, put my 650 on it. So the car had a factory rear end in it, and I take it to the track. It goes 1630s. So 1630 car. Slow. Dog slow. So I had a rear laying around that had 410s in it. Put that rear in it. Boom. 14.0. Cool. I changed the intake. I put a Wayne accelerator on it. And I changed the front drive to a serpentine with an underdrive Mustang pulley. Put all Mustang accessories on the front. Alternator, water pump, crank pulley. That's all I had. So, take the car back down. Car goes to 13.9 from the intake change. The pulleys didn't make a difference, I don't think, at all, because I could tell where it slowed down on the slip and where it picked up on the slip, because it went slower out of the hole. The 60-foot was actually a tenth slower, but the ET and mile an hour was up by 2 miles an hour. So the car went 1390s like that. Now I had a C4, had a reverse manual valve body in it, had a 8-inch converter, 4200 stall. I changed the trans converter, and I changed the exhaust because I also had long tubes, 2.5-inch H-pipe, and 2.5-inch mufflers. I'm I'm sorry, I didn't put mufflers on. I left it open H-pipe. So 2.5-inch H-pipe, long tube, Mac headers, 1 5/8, I believe they are, 2.5-inch. Standard Mustang header. The car then went 1290. Same mile per hour, so the exhaust did nothing, but the converter helped it out. So that car started at 1630 and ended up going 1290s. Now, that being said, your combination has to be there. All the key elements. The converter, or if it's a stick, has to have a good driver. Has to be driven hard, especially if it's a low horsepower setup. I mean, hold the thing to the floor and leave. Let it sing. Hold that thing at 6,000. Whatever it turns, valve float, leave off of it and send it. That stuff matters. It makes a difference. For instance, here's an example. Love this guy to death. He's like a second dad to me. Build a motor in this garage. I tell him it's going to go 10s on nitrous, 11s to 12s on motor. I don't want to say exactly what's done to the engine. Not that he probably cares. But the car, I think, actually has been on my dad's channel, if I remember correctly. Car went 11.0 on the bottle, 13.2 on motor. Here's why. Wrong converter. So this guy calls up a company, tells them what he has. They send him another converter. Puts that converter in, the car slows down to 1130 on the bottle, and who knows what it went on motor. I don't know if he even bothered making a motor pass at all. Car slowed down. Mile an hour, ET, slower. The whole thing, slower, 0.3. Maybe even more than 0.3, because it lost a decent amount of mile an hour. I said what converter to get, but he did his own thing, and I feel bad because in my mind I had an idea of what the car should go with the converter that I wanted in it. But the problem is when you tell somebody that you have a stock 302, E7 head, small cam, I drive it, I cruise it, once in a while I'll take it to the track and spray it, they think that, for one, they're going to give you a tight nitrous converter if you tell them you spray it a lot. Yeah, I spray it everywhere. I cruise it, but I do spray it. To driving, they're going to give you a low stall, so it's going to be like a 3,000, roughly. And then the spraying it, it's going to have an anti-ballooning plate in it, most likely. So it's going to be, since you spray it, now that changes the converter on motor. It's going to make it mad tight, because they're going to think that you're spraying it. The problem is with that is they don't work how they should. The converter isn't going to 60. It's going to be dead. Especially if you don't have the gear in the car. The whole key elements have to be there. So who's to say how much faster it would have went with the right converter? Probably never find out. I did, however, tell him if he puts a stock style C4 back in it, because he plans to just drive the car now. I said, if you listen to me and put the converter I tell you to put in it, the car will go faster than what it went on motor. Like he went a 13.2 with that other converter. I sent him a converter. If he ordered that converter, I guarantee the car will go 12s. I can almost 99% be positive that it's at least a 12-second car with that converter, maybe even bottom 12s. I think it'll pick up a second, to be honest, putting the right converter in it. Because I know what the 60-foot is, and I know what it should be. I think the car's going like a 2-something 60-foot on motor, and the thing should be at least 1.7, 1.6. So that's a second with that 60-foot gap. Now, these older 302s, they might take more effort to get into the 12s, 13s, because they don't go that fast factory. These cars, Fox body in 79 did not go 13s stock. Where you put a tire on a Aeronose car, 87 to 93, you can get it there if you know how to drive with a stick. A 79 car, 14s, like high 14s roughly. They were underpowered. Smog error was just, they were starting to figure it out, how to make power and still keep the emissions down and all that. So you Mustang 2 guys, all that, there's tricks you can do with timing chains and stuff, using certain years, advancing the cam timing, ignition timing. You do that stuff, you can get those cars where they start to run a little bit better. Put different heads on them, and it don't require a lot of money. You can use like an E7. That's an upgrade to that style car. If it's an open chamber head, if you have a 70cc head, you go down to a 64, or even if you find a set of GT40s, the small chambered ones, or 289 heads. Any Ford small block, 255, 289, 302, 351, all that stuff will pick up with the key elements changed. Ignition timing, the correct intake and carburetor for your setup. If you have a stock cam, or if you put like a HO roller cam in or something like that, you can make something relatively quick. It might not be fast, it might not set the world on fire, but you can go 13s and 12s rather easy with any of those combinations. But the key elements have to be there. Stuff has to match. The converter, it needs to work the way it needs to work. You guys call a company, sometimes when you call them, you do more damage than you do good. Yes, they need to know the weight of the car. I get all that stuff. All those factors play a toll. But you kind of need to tell them what you need out of the converter. If you have a car that revs 5,000 RPM, that's all it will turn. I mean, you can put a 3,800, 4,000 stall behind that. My black car had a 4,200 stall in it. This is from experience, I'm talking. Had a 4,200 stall in it. I shifted the car at like 5,200 RPM because I had a stock HO cam in it. It went faster shifting it there. I think first to second was 54, second to third was like 52. I had two different, it might have been vice versa, but I had two different shift points between the two gears with a C4. That's stuff you got to play with. The driving, that's why a stick, if you take a stick, you leave hard with it, you shift it good, you can be consistent, and the car will go faster always with a stick than it will with an automatic, especially if it's a slower car. I'm talking slower where it's like 11s and under. I even say that for some of the faster stuff, but I don't want to get into that stuff. I want to stick to this Ford small block, type of Mustangs, Mavericks, a Pinto with a 302 in it, swap car or something, a truck, whatever. But you need to build the thing, you need to do the tricks to make it run. Whether it be put in a later model camshaft or earlier model camshaft or whatever. I mean, you got to figure a 289, some of them I think made around 300 horse or something, or 250 back in the 60s, the hypo, 275, whatever they were. You can make that with a later motor. You can take a 255, do the same thing with it. Might be underpowered a couple horsepower, but it's going to be right there. It's going to run relatively the same. A 302, same deal. 351, same deal. 300 horsepower is 300 horsepower. I mean, yeah, it matters where you make it, but that's why your converter has to match, or that's why you have to leave with everything. You have to gear the car a certain way. There's all the key elements, the gear, converter, or if it's a stick, the driver. Even with auto, driver matters. That stuff makes a big difference. One person might get a car and immediately, a lot of guys do this with a converter, You see them right on the foot brake, holding that thing right again. I did it. I'm guilty. Then I was told, yo, don't do that. It'll be faster if you don't. I'll try it. And guess what? Car went faster. Okay, I learned. I was young. I learned it. Never since then, guess what? That's what I believe. So that's how I race an automatic car. I leave at just above idle if it doesn't have a trans brake. Trans brake's more so for consistency. That's a different video. But this old stuff, it doesn't matter what year engine you have. What matters are the key elements. I'm not saying you're going to take 130 horsepower 302 and go 12s with it. I'm saying if you do the stuff that it needs to go 12s, it will. So let's think about this. You take a car, 130 horsepower with a stick. Let's just say it's a stick shift car. Your old Mustangs went like 15s with like a 4-speed, like 1560s, 1580s. The cams are retarded from the factory, so you can play with that. It's going to take RPM when you play with that stuff. That's how I look at some of the stuff I do. I'll advance a cam or I'll retard it depending. One car I put together, the one I was just talking about, the cam's retarded in it because it has a certain cam where the RPM band wasn't there and I wanted it to rev to like 5,800 to 6,000. So I retarded it in that motor. Personally, I like to advance cams because I like the torque, but I figured with the converter, he wouldn't need that cam advanced. If I knew that the converter sucked, I would have advanced that cam most likely. But he also was going to spray nitrous, so I was like, all right, I'll let it build mile an hour, let the converter do its job, and the nitrous do its job. Get the car to go. Didn't work out. So if you take a car that's 130 horsepower, goes 1580s, with a 2-barrel on it, with a single exhaust or a choked up exhaust and a stick shift, now you put gear in it, you advance the cam to where it can use it, you put a little intake and carb on it, you play with the ignition timing, all that stuff's going to matter. I can guarantee you just went from a 15.8 to at least a 1380. Maybe even a little faster. No, you'll need a slick. You'll have to drive it hard. But I'm saying if you drive the car hard on a slick, it goes 15.8, you do the stuff that matters, you can pick up easy 2 seconds. Maybe even more. I honestly think it's possible to go 12s with some weight reduction and, with one of those 79 to 83 or 84, 85. The further you get up in the year until you hit 94, the easier it is. 94, they went down on power. They got heavy, the Mustangs. But, Fairmont wagons, Fairmonts, Pintos, if it's got a 302 in it, you can make them go. But it's how fast do you want it to go? And you need the key elements there to do it. Point blank. If you just take one of those cars that's 130 horsepower, you bolt on a set of aluminum heads and you put your 2-barrel back on it, guess what? Yeah, it might be a little bit faster, but you're not going to pick up what it should. Should is the key word. Because you could pick up a lot more opening that engine up, putting the correct cam in it, putting the correct intake and carb on it, the correct exhaust. If you choke it with a good head, it might even hurt it more than it will help it. Because now you've got something wanting to pull air through and it can't. You're starving it. Air and fuel. So you need the key elements. The combination has to match. Instead of spending $1,500 or $1,000 on a set of heads instantly, put an intake and carb on something and see what the thing goes. Have fun building stuff. If it's a car that you're just trying to have fun with, you don't really care how fast it goes, or you want the car to just go 12s or something, that stuff's pretty easy to get 12s. Doesn't matter what you got, you can do it. You can figure it out. Look stuff up. Figure out combinations. Read. Ask questions. Like, I'll answer. If I see a comment, I try to answer. You know, my channel's not big enough where I have 50 million people commenting. Granted, I am a busy person, but I try to answer my comments. So if somebody asks me a question, I try to always give you guys information. I try to help you guys. My dad's the same way. So if you guys got a question, hey, do you think this will work? I'll give you my input. It's up to you guys if you want to listen or not. But I'll tell you, yeah, I think that'll work, or no, for this reason. You know? But the stuff has to, the key elements have to be there to do it. So if you've never done it, I mean, granted, I've never taken one of those. I had the one I told you about in the Fairmont, which was the 306, which you could say, yeah, but that wasn't a 302 stock bottom end, even though it's stock replacement piston. But I get it. I understand it, because I would say the same thing. Well, it still had a piston in it. You know, that looks like you're trying to put effort into something. It still had a cam in it. But the older motors take more effort to get it there, but you can still get it there, is my point. You know, if you, for instance, you take a roller motor, you look at it, it's 225 horsepower factory for an 87 motor. We'll use that for a reference. If you take that 87 motor, you pull the E7 heads off, you take the roller cam out of it, you shove it in a 78 302 with a cast piston. If the pistons are the same specs, the rest of the combination is going to be right there. It's going to make 225 horsepower. It actually might make a little bit more because of the cast piston being lighter. But as long as the compression's the same, or if you take the head gasket and make the same compression, there's tricks you can do to get that to make the same power. And then you start putting stuff on top of that, it makes more power. Same way with aluminum heads even. But the combination has to match. You can't shove an intake that's good from 3,000 to 8,000 on a stock 302 and expect it to be like, man, this thing's a power horse. It's going to kill it. So look at RPM bands when you're sourcing parts. It doesn't matter if it's Ford, Chevy, Dodge, Honda, whatever. The combination has to match no matter what you build. But this Ford stuff, 255, 302, 289, 351, they can all do it. They can all go 12s pretty easy with factory parts. It's just getting the right parts, making the correct combination, and, you know, I'm not saying without an intake and carb, you need that stuff, exhaust, you need the stuff to let the stock stuff work, but if you go too big, it'll hurt it. If you go too small, it'll hurt it. So just keep that in mind. So that being said, try some stuff, play with the car if you got one, you know, if it's something you learned in this video with like ignition timing or something, play with it. Put 2 degrees in it at a time, see what it likes. If it starts pinging, pull it out because you'll blow it up. But, you know, or you can put good fuel in it if you're on regular gas. But some of this stuff you can get away with decent amount of timing in it. Learn stuff, try stuff, don't be worried about it. If it's free and you learn, you can't beat that. If it's in budget, you spend $50 or $100 or something on a carburetor, you know, try it. Worst that can happen, it slows the car down and you resell it for what you got in it. You know, that's how I do stuff. If I buy something I want to try, I'll try it. If it didn't work, sell it for what I paid for it. Try to get it at a good deal. That way you're not out nothing. So, have at it. Have fun. And enjoy it. That's what this hobby's about. So hopefully this video helps somebody and put a little perspective and light on the situation, that you can take pretty much any of these small blocks and make them run decent. Enough for a street strip guy, at least. So you guys have a good one, and I'll talk to you.